Why is the resurrection so important?
That's a good question.
Which instrument sounds the worst played by unskilled hands?
That's another good question that has nothing to do with anything.
Let's talk about it.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Why is the resurrection so important? I mean, does it really matter? You know, is it something that we need to believe? You know, is it possible for me to be a Christian and still not believe in the resurrection?
Yeah, so just for example, you will find Christians on different sides of certain debates in the Bible. So for example, the flood of Noah, you know, some believe that the flood was actually a flood that covered the whole earth, and others say, no, well, it was covering the whole world, but it was speaking about the known world at that time. So was it something in, you know, ancient Near Middle East, or was it something that covered the whole earth? You'll find Christians, and you can still be a Christian regardless of how you believe, you know, that story. For example.
Oh, another example is the 6-day creation, right? Is it actually 6 days? Was it the days longer than we know them today? You know, you can still believe in the different things, but still also be a
So there's like a controversy that people can stand on different sides of that debate and still be considered a Christian. Or maybe another example from the New Testament. If you think about baptism, infant baptism and the believer's baptism. So whether you believe in one or the other, they're not necessarily the thing that defines you as Christian. You can be a Christian regardless of which side of that debate you stand.
Now, when we speak about the resurrection, is this one of the things that we as Christians can compromise on? When we think about the resurrection, can I still not believe in the resurrection and still be a Christian? And that's what we want to tackle today.
That is a brilliant question. Now, the thing about Jesus, what we also have to understand, let me just say this again, we say this often, is that no one argues whether Jesus actually lived. Right? So there's no argument about that. The controversy, however, is on, was Jesus who he said he was? Was he in fact the Son of God? You know, was he claimed to be the Son of God? And the resurrection is actually the thing that answers that question. Now, here's what it all comes down to. In this episode, we'll elaborate now in a moment. But what it all comes down to is, if the resurrection is true, then Jesus was who he said he was. Then he is the Son of God. If the resurrection is false, then Jesus is not who he said he was. He's not the Son of God. So it's, in a sense, it's that little Jenga block right at the bottom. If you pull that one out, the resurrection belief, the whole thing tumbles down. But let's get into it. We can speak about three reasons why the resurrection matters.
So so point number one.
Resurrection.
So point number one is this, is that the resurrection actually makes Jesus' claims true or false. I mean, he even goes to foretell his own death and his resurrection. And we read this in Romans, not Romans, but in Mark 8.
This is pretty cool.
This is pretty legit. It says, and he began to teach them, the people around him, that that the Son of Man must suffer many things and be rejected by the elders and by the chief priests and the scribes and be killed, and after 3 days be risen again. How specific is that, way before Jesus actually gets crucified? And this is crazy. If you could come to say, guys, I'm going to die and then be, you know, resurrected after 3 days especially. I mean, if this is the truth, then who Jesus is, who he says he is, everything else he says is true as well. If the resurrection is true.
So the point is, he made a very specific claim that ended up happening. So he did suffer under the elders, then he was killed by them, which is one thing to foretell that, because you could have said, no, I think they're angry, they're going to do that to me. But he also claimed his own resurrection.
And specifically 3 days.
Yes. And so the point is, if the resurrection did happen, it makes all of the claims of Jesus true. It makes him the Son of God. And if it didn't happen, then Jesus is
kind of evil, actually.
Or just a normal man. He's just a liar. And this is important because in our previous episodes, as some of you might remember, we spoke about other religions. So remember, we were speaking about Christianity versus Islam, Christianity and Buddhism, Christianity and Hinduism.
Even agnosticism.
So we spoke about a number of other religions, and what we said in most of them is that the thing that determines whether Christianity is right or not, whether we can actually believe that Christianity is the right way, is it all comes down to the resurrection of Jesus. If this claim that Jesus made ends up being true, and if he was resurrected from the dead, then all of his claims would be true, which means he is the way to the Father. And if not, if he was not resurrected, then it doesn't matter what kind of religion you choose. You can just pick one, because then he was just a normal man, just an inspirational leader like maybe Mahatma Gandhi or Mandela, or even just like the other religious prophets like, the Prophet Muhammad or Buddha. Then he's just like all of those. But if the resurrection is true, it separates Jesus.
Definitely.
It makes his claims true or false. Amen.
Amen.
So the second real quick reason why the resurrection really matters is if you read the Bible, especially the New Testament, there is too much, too many. Okay.
Too much many.
The second reason why the resurrection is so important is that if there's no resurrection, then the whole Bible basically falls flat. The second reason why the resurrection is so important is because it makes the whole Bible true or false. You see, the whole credibility of the Bible would fall flat if the resurrection is not true. Because in the New Testament, there's just too much about the resurrection. Apart from the claims of Jesus himself, there's also the claims of all the apostles that wrote in the New Testament, all of them referring to the resurrection of Jesus and basing their whole arguments, all of their arguments on top of the resurrection. So if the resurrection is not true, then why believe any of it? Sorry.
Third time lucky.
The second reason why the resurrection is so important is because it makes the whole Bible true or false.
Have you ever had a dream that you could do?
The second reason why the resurrection is so important is because it makes the whole Bible true or false. The Bible has too many claims of the resurrection. And so the whole credibility of the whole New Testament especially will fall flat if the resurrection is not true. Not only did Jesus claim that he will rise from the dead, but all of his apostles and all of the writings in the New Testament is actually arguing for the resurrection of Jesus. And also they base their whole argument on the resurrection. So if the resurrection is not true, then why believe any of the Bible? It makes the whole thing actually true. Now, this is, however, not the case when it comes to some of the other debates on how you get baptized, whether it's as a baby or as a grown-up, or some of the other debates maybe in the Old Testament. It's not at the same level as the resurrection. When you think about that,
And even getting to our third point is understanding this: if the resurrection was fake, then the whole gospel is fake. Then it's false, because the resurrection is the gospel. The gospel is the resurrection.
It's not something outside of the gospel.
Outside of it. It is what it is. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
And even if you read in Romans 1, it actually explains this. It says that Paul, a servant of Christ, Jesus called to the apostles and set apart for the gospel of God. And he says, this is the gospel of God. This is what we're talking about. And he says, when he promised beforehand through the prophets in the Holy Scriptures of his Son, concerning his Son. And he says, he goes on to say,
the gospel of God is concerning his Son. It's about Jesus.
The gospel, the whole picture of God is concerning his Son. And he says, and was declared to be the Son of God by his resurrection from the dead.
Yes.
You see, Jesus was claimed to be the Son of God by the resurrection. And if Jesus is not the Son of God, the gospel falls flat.
Yes,
and so the resurrection is the pinnacle of the gospel.
So it's not, the point is the resurrection is not just, some interesting element or an add-on. It's not only a element, that's basically what the gospel falls or stands on. So it is like the Jenga block. If you take that Jenga block out, the whole tower actually falls flat.
But it's like the cornerstone.
Yes.
It's the cornerstone of the faith.
So no resurrection, no Christianity. That's what it comes down to. And our belief system is actually not based on just what we read here. It's based on the resurrection of Jesus. Because of the resurrection of Jesus, people went and wrote letters that later became our Bible. But it really is the cornerstone of the Christian faith.
A very simple way to explain it, Abel.
Please explain it.
Let me explain it to you in layman's terms. Is that if I was to ask you to my house and I said to you, Abel, we're going to have a steak dinner.
A steak dinner.
Spur people with a taste for life.
Have have like a massive steak dinner. I've got the braai ready. And then you come to my house and I say, listen, I've got the chips and I've got the salad, but I forgot to get the steaks.
Yeah.
Then it's no longer a steak dinner, is it?
Yeah. So if you substitute it with chicken, you can't say, no, we're having a steak dinner, but just with chicken.
Yeah.
It's not a steak dinner.
First of all, chicken is technically almost not a meat. Let's get there first. But I mean, steak dinner, it's not the same thing. It's having all the extras, but not the real deal.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. The real deal is Christianity.
Yeah,
Is
in
resurrection.
Christianity is the resurrection.
Is
You
the
can't take
resurrection.
that out and still call it Christianity. That's what it comes down to. No resurrection, no Christianity. So maybe just to conclude, C.S. Lewis once said this, that if Christianity is true, it is of utmost importance. It is the most important thing then to all of us. And if Christianity is false, then it is of no importance to anyone. But I almost want to say is that that's the same for the resurrection. If Jesus rose from the dead, this Christian claim and this Bible, everything it teaches us, is the most important thing in the world to you. It is of utmost importance. And if Jesus did not rise from the dead, it is of no importance at all.
And I mean, seeing the proof that this is the real, that Jesus is the Son of God. I mean, you've got to make up your mind about it. It's too important for you to just act this nonchalant life with it.
Yes.
You've got to choose whether you believe that Jesus is who he said he is.
Yeah.
Making
So
your
it's
mind
not-
up
As
about
a
it.
Christian, it's not something you can compromise on. It's not optional. It's either, yes, you believe it, therefore you are a Christian, or no, you don't, and therefore you are not a Christian. Yeah. If you want to know more about some of the historical or logical arguments for the resurrection, if you want to say, hold up, how can we actually believe in that? Isn't it just a fantasy or fable? You can go check out our previous episode where we spoke about some of the very logical arguments for the resurrection. And so please go check that out. Yeah.
Well, we need to make our mind up about something else.
Yes,
That
I
which
understand.
instrument sounds worst in unskilled hands. So
That's
let's
up
check it.
next.
3, 2,
Let's go do that.
1.
We've come to our new segment that last week we actually named right, which is the good question that has nothing to do about anything.
Yeah. So this week's episode of The Good Question that has nothing to do with anything, we are asking the question, which instrument would make the most irritating noise when played by unskilled hands? So for example, if you've got a next door neighbor, someone moving into your next door neighbor, and they are learning how to play an instrument, what would be the most irritating instrument for them to pick up
have a few
and play?
ideas.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And for this episode, we've asked a skilled musician. He's got a wonderful ear, Yaku, and he's going to be judging all of the instruments that we could get together. So he's going to be sitting here, and he's going to give it a score out of 0 to -10. So 0 being bearable, like it's okay if my neighbor plays that instrument, to -10, like I'm moving to
stab you in
another
the face.
neighborhood, or or that. Whoa. Yeah. Anyways, okay, so let's go do that. We're going to get some instruments, and then he's going to be doing the judging. Not very irritating.
That's beautiful. Like, that's actually quite soothing.
Oh, you know what? I always have my Boccarina with me.
The Boccarina.
Wonderful
Wow.
campfire instrument.
Wow.
what-
Well, how does that work? Quickly play it for us. I
It's,
want to.
you have to have a bit of skill and no flu because you play it with your nose.
Okay.
Cut. So you have to have skill when you play this instrument.
Beautiful.
How much do you rate the nose instrument?
Wow, that tops the charts, man. I mean, I've never heard of this thing, so I'll have to come back to you guys on that. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Like,
Who knows?
yeah, who knows? Okay, sorry. So you can stop. It's
Sorry, that was me.
Have you? Next up, we have the squeaky cheek exploder.
What is that?
Or the fart horn. This
Oh,
gentleman.
that's me. Okay.
Yeah.
That's actually what they called me at school.
Whoa.
Sorry, it's just
That's definitely a fart horn.
Sorry, no, I haven't tuned it yet.
Oh, okay, cool. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
I like it.
Wow. Rock 8 met die blokfluit. The hillbilly gut box up here, please.
Oh, it's a banjo.
It's actually called a banjo, but yeah. nice. Man, I definitely think that is. I can still bear with that. I would rate it a -3. Definitely if Matthew Mole is in the room with you. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. -3. Yo. Can you just get your track pots in place, please, man? The smashy. Okay.
I can definitely play them all at once.
Okay, go for it.
What question is that?
Do it.
Okay.
Nice. Okay. I would like to ask you just what this strange thing is in your hand. I think next to the Bocarena, whatever that thing is, I don't know what this thing is. What would you call this?
I call this the horse running past.
Beautiful. Yes. And I've seen the wackadingle.
This is the wackadingle.
This is a beautiful instrument.
Or the soup's ready. Yeah,
okay, cool. Yeah,
and this is the they've got a lot of keys on my keyring.
Nice. Beautiful. Wow. Exotic. I love this instrument, but with you playing it, I definitely think it's a -8. Thank you. Next. Can you do anything else?
I have another instrument.
Okay, cool.
This one is called the perfect hand clap.
Wow.
That's not so perfect, man.
But I also have another instrument.
Okay.
It's Tibetan throat singing.
All right. Okay, cool. I think my dog made that noise once, and I think that was I had to take him to the vet.
So, what's the verdict? Most irritating instrument played by unskilled hands is?
Most definitely the screech plank, well known as the violin.
Yeah. Yay! So if you want to irritate your neighbors, get yourself a screech plank.
Yes. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and please send your questions in the descriptions below.
Ring-a-ding that bell.
Answer that question. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.